Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Horse Beef here, and I haven't uploaded in about a week now. Reason being is all the wickedness going around on the internet recently. It's been more of a cesspool than usual, and I just really want to know part of it. And I decided upon that after my last post, or my post regarding Charlie Kirk. So not my last post altogether, but some of the comments I got in there were disappointing, I would say. Right, I'm disappointed. I lost a few subscribers, which is perfectly fine. I mean, if you would like to unsub to somebody because they are paying condolences to somebody who lost their life, then I am very much happy to not have your support. And if you are somebody who feels a need to celebrate an innocent man's death, then I do not want, need, or appreciate your support. I want to make that clear. If you were on the fence, I'll make things easier for you by saying simply fuck off. There's no need for you around here, at least on this channel. And that does go for the ones who displayed a complete lack of humanity. Just very disappointing. And I feel nothing but pity for you people, specifically because I've seen what you all look like. At least I hope you don't look like these weird, ugly, androgynous creatures that are going around stupidly plastering their demonic faces all over the internet while gloating about the death of an innocent man. I picture you guys like that in the comments, and like I said, I've been left feeling nothing but pity. So even though I would never associate with you whatsoever, I will still pray for you nonetheless, because you've clearly been sucked into this cult-like dogma, and it's very, very unfortunate. And I want to say thank you to the ones who paid their condolences, who left nice messages underneath that post, right? The correct type of messages that you should be leaving, rather than the ones who are just spamming their out-of-context quotes as a way to justify their wickedness. So yes, thank you to the good ones out there. I appreciate you, and I'm very glad to see that there were many more good ones than there were bad ones. So that's quite encouraging. And I want to say this as well. I'm not even suggesting that you need to be mourning Charlie Kirk, right, for what happened to him. I'm not saying you have to be mourning him, right? I've experienced situations where my family is upset about a certain death that happened. Some celebrity, right, may have passed away, and I didn't really understand what they were so upset about because I didn't have a connection to that person. I didn't connect with their art or whatever it may have been, right? So I'm not even saying that you have to be mourning, but celebrating and gloating or justifying is something else entirely, and also quite evil, if I do say so myself. But yeah, I know this is not a political channel, but I just wanted to give my thoughts on recent events, or mostly the reactions to the recent events. It's just been very, very pitiful overall. But let's get into the topic at hand, which is UFC Noche. Diego Lopez is the man. He is the man. This is one of my favorite victories, one of the most satisfying victories, not for any sort of like personal reason for why I wanted Silva to win the fight, but just because he's the most outspoken, the loudest, and he was perceived as the best of all the fighting nerds. And I feel like Diego Lopez was being written off by too large of a subsect of the fan base. For him to go out there and put on that type of performance, like eat Silva's best shots, I had a feeling that this is how the fight could possibly go, although I thought that Diego would have to drag Silva into even deeper waters to get it done. But the damage that he was able to do when he had the opportunity to do so, those 12-6 elbows on the top of Silva's dome were absolutely disgusting. He had to get stitched up in multiple parts of his cranium after last night. Shit was dirty, man. Just cut him open, had him real beat up going into round two. Round two, Silva came out there. He started to find his range more. He was no longer whiffing on the right hands. He was kind of batting like 100% on Diego Lopez's face. And I'm going to have to say, I'm pretty sure Diego Lopez has one of the greatest chins of all time. Can we say it at this point? Can we say it? Like, everyone thought. It seemed like everyone was coming to the conclusion that Silva was going to knock this dude out with his lack of defense. But what happened? Diego Lopez only needs his iron face as defense. He does not need to keep his hands up. He doesn't need any of that shit. He eats all your shit. He was walking forward with that devious ass looking mustache, that dirty ass mustache. I have to say, it's a dirty mustache that he had, but it just fit him so well. And that mullet, just walking forward, smiling while getting pinged by arguably the biggest puncher at 145, other than probably Josh Emmett. He's a fucking Chad. Diego Lopez is one of the biggest Chads in the UFC at this point. He simply wants violence when he gets in that cage. He's one of the most entertaining fighters we have right now. And I wouldn't be mad if he got another title shot. I wouldn't, because I feel like Silva would have gotten the title shot off the back of this win. What else do you really do? Obviously, Movsar Evloev is there, and I'm sure you have a couple other guys that I'm kind of blanking on right now. But how good is Volk? How good is Volk to stay safe in front of Diego Lopez for 5 rounds like that. Like, I know he got clipped on a couple of occasions, got popped in the eye with an uppercut, but how good is Volk, man? John Silva couldn't deal with this guy for 2 rounds without looking like he was in a genuine car accident. Honestly, the way that he was beat up afterwards. And also, I want to address the walkout from John Silva. What's going on with that walkout? Did he plan all of that? Did he plan to stare his wife down? I assume it's his wife. Maybe it's his girlfriend, but his significant other. Did he plan to stare her down like that? That shit was so weird. And then he gets in the octagon, and while Bruce Buffer's reading out his name, it looks like he's trying to reach for the mic. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. Was he trying to reach for the mic there? Did he really think that he would be the first one to grab the mic from Bruce Buffer? He's that important. He's that special. That he'd be the first fighter to ever grab the mic off of Bruce Buffer during ring announcements. Correct me if I'm wrong, though. I'm not sure. If that's not what he was going for, I'm not sure. But it sure as shit looked like that. And it was just weird. And then the post-fight antics, I get that you're emotional. And he's clearly a very emotional fighter. He might be the most emotional fighter that we've ever fucking seen. It's pretty nuts. Maybe aside from War Machine. I forget what his true name was. And honestly, I don't really care to learn it either. But wow, classless after the fact. Maybe he was going at fucking Diego for talking shit to his corner, talking shit to his team, whatever. But you just lost the fight, dude. You just had the opportunity to punch the guy, and you get up and then you strike him in the back of the head. I know it wasn't a big shot, and Diego Lopez's life is not in danger as a result of it. But what do you guys think? Should John Silva face consequences for what he did there? Should he face a suspension? Because what he did was over the line. And even though it wasn't anything serious, like I said, it still is, I would assume, a major breach in the rules. So let me know what you think, man. But let's talk about that finish. Let's talk about it, dude. It looked like John Silva was finding his range, like I said. He didn't seem to be able to miss in that second round. The 1-2s, the elbows, right? The kicks, the combos he was throwing. He was looking real creative in there. It looked like he was flowing. But one thing I noticed, and that's why it's so funny that Diego Lopez ended up catching with the spinning elbows, that John Silva was like spamming those spinning elbows over and over again. And kind of like showing up his back to Diego Lopez. I'm surprised that Diego didn't get him down to the ground more frequently with how often John Silva was just blindly throwing out those spinning elbows. Yeah, man. I'm not sure what he was thinking there. He was getting way too ahead of himself and really trying to TikTok clip farm is the only thing I can imagine is what he was trying to do there. But you don't clip farm on someone with the chin of Diego Lopez. And then you foolishly run into a spinning elbow. Oh, boy. Nasty finish. The ground and pound was nasty. It could have been stopped earlier, honestly. And if he did get out of that round, like I know John Silva, he posted some video talking about 13 seconds left in the round, whatever. Who cares? If that fight went to the third round, John Silva, like just imagine what he would have looked like, honestly. Because I don't think that he had any way back into that fight after the second. I think he would have had not much left to give. He got brutalized, and hopefully he's been humbled. Because like I said in my last video, I said I don't think that any of these fighting nerds are actual frauds, but I do think that each and every one of them needed to pick up this loss in the UFC to galvanize them and push them to get to that next level, because they were drinking their own Kool-Aid and it was very, very clear. And where do I think John Silva goes from here? How far can he still go from here? I still think that he could be a champion. I think that Prates can be a champion. I kind of leave it at that. I think Rufi and Cal Borralho are maybe a step below them, but I still think that Jean and Carlos can be champions. I think if Jean was in there with Volkanovski last night, there's a good chance that Jean would have beaten Volkanovski, because he could have KO'd him, because Volk doesn't have that chin. He's super chinny at this point in his career. And if he was able to land just a couple of those big rights that he was landing on Diego, I'm not sure that Volk would have been able to take it so well. But then again, Volk would have posed so many problems of his own with the footwork and just the movement, the speed, and the technical striking that he does possess. He would have posed so many more worries for Jean Silva. I believe he could have out-wrestled Jean Silva as well. So I'm not saying that he would have for sure beaten Volk, but styles do make fights, and I feel like Jean matches up better against Volk than he did against Diego Lopez. Then again, he still has a long way to go now. Maybe we get Jean Silva versus Josh Emmett, an Arnold Allen matchup, maybe Yusuf Zalal, or if the UFC wants to make him fight a little bit down in the rankings, maybe we see him versus Steve Garcia, David Onama. Those could be scraps. Those could be serious scraps. I'd actually like to see Steve Garcia versus John Silva. I think that would be an absolute banger, dude. So, fraud checking? Nah. Being fraud checked by Diego Lopez or being beat by Diego Lopez is not a fraud checking by any means, but it's a big loss. It's a big moment for him. It's massive, massive humbling. And hopefully he takes it in the right way going forward. Because regardless of how annoying I find John Silva to be sometimes, I do enjoy watching him fight. And I very much look forward to every one of his fights. So I hope he bounces back. I really do. And I think he can, for sure. But he may have to do some work mentally. And I'm no psychologist or anything, but Jean Silva wears his heart in his sleeve. It's very clear to see that he is an emotionally unstable person. And I don't even think that's a harsh thing to say. I just think that's what he displays. And he displayed it after the fact as well. So I think he should really do some work on himself emotionally, really harness his emotions and being able to control them, because I believe that's what lost him the fight here, along with Diego Lopez being an absolute giga chad. But there were some other fun moments on the card, right? Daniel Donchenko is a complete beast, and I cannot wait to watch him going forward. The elbows were nasty, the boxing. He's just a hard-nosed brawler, and I really enjoyed his performance, man. I cannot wait to watch him fight again. I hope he doesn't turn out like a Andreas Gustafsson type situation, if you know what I mean. That would be absolutely devastating here. But then we get Alice Pereira. Oh my God, she was so hyped, 19 years old, and she looked terrible. Cedric Dumas got kicked in the balls and couldn't continue. Listen, I don't want to get too much into it. I don't want to accuse him of milking it. But when it's Cedric Dumas in question, would you put that past him? Probably not. Tatiana Suarez won a fight because of the round-by-round scoring, even though she did nothing, and Amanda Lemos achieved more in like 10 seconds than she did for the entirety of the fight. But that's just the way she goes, I suppose, right? Alexander Hernandez with another KO, man. He's in great form. I've been calling it out for a while. I think he's a very underrated fighter. Obviously, Diego Ferreira was like 40 years old and coming off a pretty long layoff, which is why I'm surprised that so many people were picking him very confidently against Hernandez, who's been pretty active and in, like I said, very good form. Kelvin Gastelum proved that sanctioned cheating does in fact work. Just miss weight, surrender half your purse, win the fight anyway, and then call it a day. Listen, man, Kelvin Gastelum should be cut from the UFC because of this shit. I actually hate to see it. Even though I'm a big fan of Kelvin Gastelum, he's being rewarded for being a fat fuck, and I just can't stand by anymore and watch this shit. And even though Kelvin Gastelum is being penalized for it, we're still seeing him rewarded for his lack of discipline. Rafa Garcia fought, as you would expect, a Mexican man to fight, just like an absolute dog or any Mexican person. They're just dogs, man. I love watching Mexicans fight with any rule set, because Mexicans just come to scrap. And Jared Gordon was looking great. Rafa Garcia looked like he slowed down heavily in the second round. In the third round, he found that right hand that put Jared Gordon down. It was a war of attrition. Fantastic fight. David Martinez showed that he could get past one of the best gatekeepers in the UFC, that is Rob Font. Really tough test for a lot of these younger guys coming up. Jean Matsumoto couldn't get past it, but David Martinez could. Great performance overall, and that just concludes the remainder of my thoughts for UFC Noche. But I would like to quickly talk about Terence Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez, since that also took place last night, and it was a big fight. And even though I don't talk about boxing much on this channel, it is something that I do love quite a bit. I love practicing it more than I enjoy talking about it. I've dabbled quite extensively with boxing throughout my life, and this fight was a treat for me. Like, when I watch boxing, I have different expectations than when I watch MMA. I know a lot of people would find a 12-round chess match like this to be quite uninteresting and boring, but I loved watching it because I was just blown away by Terence Crawford's performance at the age of 37. I didn't realize that he was younger than Canelo. I actually totally forgot about that, but when I realized that afterwards, it just made this performance even more impressive, and it wasn't even really that close. I think the scorecards did a lot of heavy lifting for Canelo. He got beat up pretty bad here. It looked like he got rocked at the end of the fight as well. Crawford came up in weight, so he wasn't asking Canelo to come down to him. He came up to Canelo's weight and beat him with relative ease. Canelo barely caught Terence clean in this fight. He was just swinging big right overhand, big left hook. It was just all big shots, while Terence was the one landing the meaningful combinations. Even when the fight was in the pocket, he was beating up Canelo. At every range, he had Canelo beat here, and it was a great performance. Everyone bigging up his performance. They're doing it for good reason. This was a masterclass of a performance, because it's not easy to shut down Canelo like that, especially when you're not even the bigger man. Like, Bivol did it to Canelo, yes, but he was the bigger man. Terence did it while coming up in weight, did it in style, and I'm over the moon for Terence Crawford, man. He's a humble man. He really is a humble man, And since we're on the topic of Terence Crawford, I have to address Ilia Topuria. You guys know I'm a huge fan of Ilia Topuria. He's arguably my favorite, potentially second favorite after Peter Yan fighter in the UFC. But I have to say a tweet like this: enough with this shit, Ilia. Just like stick to what you got going on in the UFC. Terence Crawford beat the brakes off him. He would. He beat the brakes off Ilia in the ring. Is that not like an obvious thing to say? Is it not obvious to suggest that Terence Crawford would beat the brakes off of Ilia and probably finish him in a boxing ring? Listen, I know Ilia says everything and everything he says comes true, but like, come on, guys. Let's not get to the point of delusion and thinking that he can actually beat Terence Crawford in the ring. It's just not going to happen. Yes, he would beat Terence Crawford probably under any other rule set, sure. But he's calling out Terence Crawford in boxing, I believe. And it has to be said that he doesn't have a chance. He does not have a shot, in my opinion. And that's coming from somebody who has been considered as one of the biggest Ilia quote-unquote glazers on YouTube, right? But it's just common sense, I believe. But man, what a fight. I would say what an event, but I didn't really watch most of the event. I fell asleep before the Canelo Crawford fight, woke up for the Canelo Crawford fight, thankfully. And man, what a treat it was. I love seeing these big clashes like Beterbiev and Bivol was awesome, right? All the super heavyweight fights. Like whenever we get these big boxing events, it is exciting for me. And in my opinion, this fight delivered. It did. It was a good fight. Great fight even. Fantastic performance from Terence Crawford. Congratulations, Ilia Topuria. Stay in your lane, please. Just stick to MMA and, stick to, picking out these guys at 155 and then eventually moving up to 170 and beating Islam. Think about that. Don't think about Terence Crawford. Shit would not go well. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you on the next one.